Glory to Jesus Christ. Today we'll be reading the Gospel for the 25th Sunday after Pentecost, which is Luke 13:10 to 17, and then the commentary from the blessed Theophylact. So the Gospel for the 25th Sunday after Pentecost, Luke 13:10 to 17. Now he was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath. And behold, there was a woman who had a spirit of infirmity 18 years, and was bent over, and could in no way raise herself up. But when Jesus saw her, he called her to him and said to her, Woman, you are loosed from your infirmity. And he laid his hands on her, and immediately she was made straight and glorified God. But the ruler of the synagogue answered with indignation, because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath. And he said to the crowd, There are 6 days on which men ought to work, therefore come and be healed on them, and not on the Sabbath day. The Lord then answered him and said, Hypocrite, does not each one of you on the Sabbath loose his ox or donkey from the stall, and lead it away to water it? So ought not this woman, being a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has bound, think of it, for 18 years, be loosed from this bond on the Sabbath. And when he had said these things, all his adversaries were put to shame, and all the multitude rejoiced for all the glorious things that were done by him. And then the commentary from the blessed Theophylact. The woman suffered from this affliction as a result of demonic assault, as the Lord himself says, this woman whom Satan has bound, lo, these 18 years. Perhaps God had departed from her on account of certain sins, and as a result Satan was punishing her. For Satan is in part the cause of all the hardships which afflict our bodies, when God on high permits him. From the very beginning it was Satan who brought about our fall, by which we lost the incorruptibility in which we had been created. It was Satan who caused us to be bound to diseased bodies prone to suffering, symbolized by the garments of dead skins in which Adam and Eve were wrapped. But now the Lord, with the majestic voice of the Godhead, full of power, drives out the infirmity of this woman. He places his hands on her, so that we might learn that his holy flesh imparted both the power and the energy of the Logos. For his flesh was his own, and not that of some other human person alongside him, separate from him in hypostasis, as the impious Nestorius thinks. So great is the goodness of the Lord, who in this manner took mercy on his own creation. But Satan, who had bound the woman in the first place, was vexed at her deliverance, because he desired her continued affliction. And so he bound the ruler of the synagogue with spite, and through the mouth of this man Satan reviled the miracle. This is how he always attacks the good. Therefore the Lord uses the apt example of irrational animals to rebuke the man who was indignant that a healing had taken place on the Sabbath. And thus not only this man, but all the other adversaries of Jesus as well, were put to shame by Christ's words. For it was insane to hinder the healing of a man on the Sabbath, using as a pretext the commandment that the Sabbath be a day of rest. So it was that even while the people were rejoicing at the Lord's deeds, his adversaries were put to shame by his words. For these adversaries, rather than joining in the jubilation which followed his work of healing, instead burned with rage that he had healed at all. But the multitude, because they derived benefit from his signs, rejoiced and took pleasure in this healing. You must also understand these miracles to refer to the inner man. The soul is bent over in infirmity whenever it inclines to earthly thoughts alone and imagines nothing that is heavenly and divine. It can truly be said that this soul has been infirm for 18 years. For when a man is feeble in keeping the commandments of the divine law, which are 10 in number, and is weak in his hope of the 8th age, the age to come, it can be said that he has been bent over for 10 and 8 years. Is not that man indeed bent over who is attached to the earth, and who always sins in disregard of the commandments, and who does not look for the age to come? But the Lord heals such a soul on the Sabbath in the assembly of the synagogue. For when a man assembles together within himself thoughts of confession, Judah means confession, and keeps the Sabbath, that is, he rests from doing evil, then Jesus heals him, not only by word when he says to him, "You are loosed from your infirmity," but also by deed. For when he has placed his hands on us, he requires that we accept the energy from his divine hands to do in collaboration with him the works of virtue. We must not be satisfied to receive only that healing which comes by word and by instruction. So this is the gospel for the 25th Sunday after Pentecost. Glory to Jesus Christ.